Hey, this is Matthew, and welcome back to Nerd News Today. We've got another statue review coming your way, and this time it's from Diamond Select as part of their DC Gallery Diorama series. We've got Poison Ivy. And you know what, folks? I like reviewing Poison Ivy things. Why? Because I don't have to worry about doing any green screen work behind me today. And that makes my life a lot easier. So let's talk about this packaging. It's got some nice green colors on it, very spring-like, very bright green. A little bit more of a yellowish green, in fact, on this side. It kind of turns into a deeper shade of green when you turn it around. You can see there it goes into more of a foresty kind of color. We've got our name down here, a lot more shades of green to go along with it, and a little vial of poison next to some ivy. Well, that's kind of on the nose, but you know what? I actually like that. I think it's a pretty cute logo. And we can see it, in fact, on the back of the box as well as on one of the sides. So speaking of, yeah, front of the box has a nice little window. We've got the same on the side, and there's that vial of poison again with the poison ivy, and another look at what's on the side. The one thing that I don't know if I like as much is the fact that her window is pretty small. Like, you don't really get to see the full statue as much as you would with other pieces. Her head's kind of cut off in there, and it feels like she kind of needs some more room in there because her head's almost touching the top of this box. So I'm surprised that a company like Diamond didn't give her a little bit more space because, you know, we've seen how they package their action figures, and they're typically pretty large boxes. But with Poison Ivy, they didn't do that. So yeah, not a big deal, just something to watch out for. And the back of the box here, we've got a nice bio about Poison Ivy. Tells us a little bit of her origin story, and it also lets us know who this piece was made by. And this was designed by Sean Knapp and sculpted by James Marsano. We've also got a photo of what the statue looks like next to an illustration of Poison Ivy. The one problem here is clearly that in this photo, she's green, in the drawing, she's not. And I would have preferred those two things to match. But really, at the end of the day, it's not about what the box looks like, it's about what's inside that matters. So let's go ahead and take Poison Ivy out of this packaging and get a better look at her from all angles. And here is our Poison Ivy now out of the packaging. So this reminds me a lot of that Harley Quinn statue we looked at not that long ago here on this channel. And I don't know if that's actually a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest, because I had kind of mixed feelings about that Harley Quinn statue. I liked it, but there were some parts of it I didn't like. And yeah, it's giving me some flashbacks to that. So let's talk about, I think, really the thing I don't like the most, and that's this pose here. And it doesn't help that the face also is part of this scenario here because her face is very sleepy looking. I guess that's part of the statue, and it's meant to be her actually waking up because if you really look at this pose here, it's like she's kind of stretching her body out. She's running her fingers through her hair, her fingers, which have mysteriously disappeared into that hair somewhere. Who knows where they could be. Yeah, this kind of looks like she's basically just blooming out of the flower, blossoming, if you will. And that's kind of a cool concept. I actually think that concept is very original and unique. It's rare that we get like a sleepy time kind of character, and that's kind of interesting. But I don't know if it works that much because, you know, even though the anatomy here is really good, really spot on, very anatomically correct, it's kind of boring, and the way she's kind of just like positioning her body and thrusting it forward, that's the part that kind of makes me doubt the anatomy a little bit more so because, yeah, her proportions, I should say, are what's correct. Where her body's moving and how it's moving, that much I don't really know about, and it kind of just looks funny to me, you know? The pose of it just throws me off a little bit. It really looks like, you know, the way her hips are, they're basically neutral, but they're off to an angle, and her torso is kind of jutting upwards. It throws me off. I don't like it. And as far as a pose, it's like not really that sexy. It's not really that powerful either. It's just kind of there. It doesn't do much for me. It doesn't really offer me much about the character Poison Ivy. But I can respect that they made a different choice to go for a different visual than what we're used to. And I really do think that this idea is very commendable, very original, but it's also very boring. I do like the colors though, and I do like the paint job overall in this piece. You know, green and red are those two colors that are very synonymous with each other. They work together very, very well. And as does purple and of course pink. Purple is a radiant color when it's next to red, and what that means is it's gonna make your eyeballs kind of flash, and it's gonna make it a little bit harder to look at. But when you've got the brown here that's inside the flower, that helps offset that a little bit, as does the pink shade here. And that makes it a very, very balanced piece on the color spectrum. Very easy to look at and very pleasant to look at. Because, you know, this is not exactly the most beautiful shade of green, depending on who you ask. It's like Wizard of Oz Wicked Witch green, you know? But thanks to the other colors that are here and how it's balanced with these two brighter, warm colors, it's very, very well done. That part is excellently executed. And I really do like this base a ton. I can't get over how good the base is, actually. The base is definitely my favorite part of the piece. The petals really actually look like petals. They're definitely way thicker than a real plant would be, but that's because of the limitations of the material that they're using. This is PVC plastic, and if that was any thinner, it would make it super fragile and would easily break when it's shipped. So that's kind of the price you pay for getting a $50 statue of PVC. because you got to make things a little bit thicker and a little bit hardier to survive. And as we mentioned too, I think the face is also what's kind of throwing it off, because what it makes me think about more in this case is not so much an action-packed Poison Ivy statue. It reminds me of just like an illustration I would see someone do. Like, I want to say it's a Milo Manara kind of look to it. Maybe it is. Maybe there's something with that, because the noses kind of look sort of similar. It's clearly meant to be an erotic kind of pose, and I definitely get the eroticism in it. And it's a very subdued eroticism. So maybe that's what's just also not making me as interested off the bat, because this one's not as in your face as all the other statues we've seen that are meant to be sexier. Which is, again, a very respectable concept. You know, we've seen 100,000 poses. We've seen 100,000 things of Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and all the other women from DC Comics with enormous boobs and big butts and all that kind of stuff. This one here is a lot more natural looking, which I really like. I like the fact that this is a woman who's into plants, and therefore she should be a lot more natural looking. I like how organic it all feels, because the pose does feel like something you'd see somebody actually do in real life. But on the other hand, the problem, I guess, with it that I'm having, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, is that because other statues tend to just be so much more overtly sexy, this one is less so, and it does make it kind of boring. And I keep saying boring, but is boring actually a bad thing? Now, bear with me, folks. I don't think it necessarily is. It's what you want out of a statue that matters. And I will say, you know, the fact that even though I think this pose might be a little dull, I don't think that makes for a bad statue. So if you made it here this long with me, folks, it's almost like I'm going to backtrack what I just said. But yeah, in a way, you know, the piece is boring to look at, but it also makes it very pretty. It also very much reminds me of kind of more classical paintings, more classical illustrations. And that part I really do like about it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Morbius statue we looked at not that long ago as well, where I thought that the Morbius statue was, again, not necessarily the most exciting, but because of how it was put together and the composition of the piece, it made it one of my favorites of the year so far. I don't think this Poison Ivy that we're looking at today is going to be a favorite of mine, but I will say I do like the fact that it's more of an artist's kind of statue. Because the pose is not just big boobs, big butt, leaning over, showing you all her goods and her yayas, the fact that this is actually a very organic looking pose and very naturalistic pose, I really do like that. I really do appreciate that. I like that her proportions are much more realistic as well, and I like that they really took a chance on a pose like this, because, you know, especially when I saw this in the box, it looked just extra funny, and she almost looked like, I don't even know how to describe it, it just didn't look right. Something about it didn't look right because of the way she's posed. Once it's out of the box, it definitely looks 100 times better to me, and I actually like it a lot more now. You know, to be fair, I thought I was going to really hate this piece. Now that I've gotten it out and gotten a better look at it, yeah, I think I actually do like it, and I think I can give it a recommend. But that recommendation is based more so on what you prefer to get out of your statues. Do you want your statues to have big boobs and big butts, or do you want them to actually look like something you'd see in a museum? Because that's kind of the case here. This looks like something I'd see in a museum somewhere, whether it be on a painting or in a statue, anything along those lines. It's got some dancer-like qualities to it. It's a very elegant pose, and that's something that we don't really get a lot with statues, especially at this price point. So, you know what? I'm going to tell you guys, despite the fact that I just spent all that time kind of calling it boring, I still think it's actually pretty good, and I think it's very clever. And the other thing, too, is, you know, if you're ashamed of having your statues on display and having all them big boob ladies staring at you all the time, this is that one statue that's going to really class things up. I think that's really the key word here for this Poison Ivy statue, is that it's classy. Poison Ivy is a classy dame, let's just say that. It's a classy, elegant piece. That's the words I'm going to use to really describe this. It's very unique, very different, and I think that's what makes it worth adding to your collection. But at the end of the day, that's for you to decide, so I'm curious what you guys think about this piece. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is this the right one for you? What do you like and what do you not like about this Poison Ivy? But as for my money, I'm going to give it a recommendation. So if you'd like to order this Poison Ivy for yourself, why not use our Amazon affiliate links in the description below. It helps this channel out and costs you nothing extra. And while you're at it, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you can check out all the other things we do here on Nerd News Today. So until next time, this is the DC Gallery Diorama statue of Poison Ivy from Diamond Select. I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.